Alright, there's a new Ghostbusters movie coming out, so I thought it was time to cover the 8 and 16-bit Ghostbusters games, along with a few other standouts. Let's go ahead and get started with the original Ghostbusters game for the Commodore 64. In this game, created by legendary programmer David Crane, you play as the Ghostbusters. You travel around the city as a Ghostbusters logo, and you have to travel to the building that's flashing because they apparently have a ghost there. Once you arrive, you drop your trap, and you try to catch the ghost with your proton pack.
He slimed me!
So that is the meat of the game. You travel around the map, you catch ghosts, you take them back to the Ghostbusters headquarters, and eventually the PKE meter goes off the scale, and then Stay Puft shows up, and then you have to defeat him. Now, most of you are probably more familiar with the NES version of this game, and let me tell you, it's horrible. The Commodore version is so much better, but, you know, it's basically the same game. Even though the graphics are weaker, the music is weaker, the gameplay is weaker. Overall, this game is just way weaker than the Commodore version. Then there's the Sega Master System version of the game, which looks and plays and sounds way better than the Nintendo version. And I think it even looks and sounds better than the Commodore version. Oh no, Stay Puft is stomping on my buildings! Oh, okay. And then finally, we have the Atari 2600 version of Ghostbusters. Again, it's basically the same game, just way more pared down in terms of graphics and sound. But honestly, I'm really surprised they were able to pull this off as well as they did. I really like the graphics when you're catching the ghosts. I thought that looked pretty cool. I would say this is a very impressive game for the 2600. Next we have Ghostbusters for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive. Now I always put these games on easy because I pretty much suck at them, and this is no different. I still suck at this version of Ghostbusters. But it is pretty nice that you can choose between Raymond, Peter, and Egon, although poor Winston gets left behind once again. Anyway, this is more of a side-scrolling shooter game where you travel through different houses and blast the ghosts or monsters or whatever they are. I do like the graphics in this game. The characters sorta kinda look like their counterparts, although more cartoony. And then once you get through the stage, you have to fight a boss, and this is pretty much where I suck. I can't defeat this stupid boss. And I'm sure it's some easy, stinking trick that you have to do in order to defeat him. I don't know, I just couldn't do it. But hey, if you like side-scrolling shooters, you'll probably like the Ghostbusters game for the Sega Genesis and Sega Mega Drive. Next we have the arcade game, The Real Ghostbusters, created by Data East. And this is a pretty cool top-down kind of shooter game, you know, like Ikari Warriors or Commando, something like that. Although instead of soldiers, you're shooting scary-looking ghosts with your proton pack. Well, actually you're shooting monsters, and then those monsters turn into ghosts, and then you have to catch them. And the more ghosts that you catch, the more points that you get at the end of the stage. Of course, before you can drop off those ghosts at the ghost trap, you have to fight a boss, and they're generally not too difficult to defeat, even for me. Once you defeat the boss, a key will appear in front of the door, and then you can exit the stage. Why is there a key? Why not just have the door open? This is a very repetitive game, but overall it's pretty fun. Now this game did appear on a variety of other systems, including the Commodore 64 here, and it's not a bad version of the game, it's still pretty fun. I will say though, the music does get quite annoying after a while. If I were playing this for any length of time, I'd be turning the volume down, that's for sure. But it does have a variety of stages, and the scrolling is good, and overall the gameplay is pretty fun. Now let's check out the Atari ST version of the game, and as you can see, the graphics are more similar to the arcade than the Commodore version is, while the Commodore 64 version. The Amiga version looks pretty much the same as this one. Also, I don't find the music quite as grating as on the Commodore 64. In addition to the Commodore 64 and Atari ST version, there was also an Amiga version, an Amstrad version, and the ZX Spectrum version, or as we say in America, ZX Spectrum. Next we have Real Ghostbusters for the Game Boy. And this is more or less a side-scrolling puzzle game. Basically, you find the key, you open the door, and you move on to the next stage. Your proton pack can destroy certain blocks, and there's also bombs and little star things that you're supposed to collect. Honestly, I only played this game for a few minutes, but it looks like a pretty fun game, actually. I just don't know how well it works as a Ghostbusters game. Next we have Ghostbusters 2 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and this is a side-scrolling shooter game, at least in the early stages. Later on, you get to drive the Ecto-1, shoot ghosts in an abandoned train tunnel, shoot ghosts as the Statue of Liberty, and then finally defeat Vigo in the museum. This game might be marginally better than the original Ghostbusters game, but I feel like they just intentionally made it too hard. Hey, at least the graphics are recognizable in this one. There's actually another Ghostbusters 2 game for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it's called New Ghostbusters 2. Now, unfortunately, this was never released in America. I believe it was only in Japan and European countries. But oh my gosh, this game is so much fun. You start out by choosing 2 Ghostbusters out of 5. Yes, there's Winston, and Lewis is in the game too. And the reason that you need 2 Ghostbusters to play is so that one can hold the ghost with the proton pack and the other can catch him with the trap. Now, it looks like we start out the game in the courthouse offices, and we're going around catching the different ghosts. And our first boss that we have to defeat are the Scarelli brothers, I think is their name? Scolari brothers, there you go, that's how you pronounce it. The second stage is here in the abandoned railway, and yeah, we're just still catching ghosts. And gosh, I don't know what it is about this game, but it is just so fun. I really wish this one had come out in America, but I think due to licensing issues, it wasn't allowed. But if you get a chance to play this version, definitely do it. It is a lot of fun. Very enjoyable game. Then we have what is essentially the Game Boy version of New Ghostbusters 2, and that's just Ghostbusters 2 for the Game Boy. And it's the same idea, you get to pick one of 4 Ghostbusters. Thankfully they have included Winston, and you travel the stage looking for ghosts to catch. Now, while this game is very, very similar to the NES New Ghostbusters 2, one thing I noticed is that your second player who follows you around is not quite as accurate as in the NES version. But even so, this is a fun version of Ghostbusters 2. Next we have what I consider to be one of the worst games ever, and that's Ghostbusters 2 for the Atari ST, Amiga, Amstrad, Spectrum, MSX, and Atari 2600. This is the Atari ST version here, and basically your goal is to, well, get to the bottom of the shaft and collect a specimen of the slime. But I can't even do that. I suck. I can't get to the bottom of this stupid stage. The ghosts always kill me before I can collect the sample. The swinging mechanics is the biggest problem. It's so hard to control the character as he's going down that shaft. It's a pain in the butt. And the ghosts are just all over the place. You can't even move hardly. But anyway, some folks have been able to get a little further than me. I don't know, maybe they had a cheat code or something. But apparently you can play as the Statue of Liberty, shooting ghosts. Then you get into the museum and shoot Vigo, and that's pretty much the game. Surprisingly, there was an Atari 2600 version of the game, and it's just as annoying and irritating as the Atari ST version. Apparently this version only has 2 stages, the shaft and the Statue of Liberty stage, which is fine by me because I pretty much hate this game in all forms. Ugh. Now there was a separate version of Ghostbusters 2 for the PC, and it looks like it would be a little bit better, but I didn't last very long just playing the first stage. I was done in about 2 seconds. But I really do like the graphics in this game. They look very nice. It was much easier getting to the bottom of the shaft than in the other version of the game. And this one, you're just automatically there. Although I just couldn't quite grab anything. These stupid arms kept pulling me in. Ugh. Ghostbuster to Parkview, committed after crawling from sewer and mauling a pretzel vendor. So yeah, I wasn't able to get too far into the game, obviously, but if you played the PC version, let me know. I'd be curious to learn if the game is fun. Maybe I'll give it another chance.
Ghostbusters, what do you want?
Next we have Ghostbusters. It was released for the... Are you ready for this? PS4, Xbox One, Switch, Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. It also appeared on the PSP and the Wii in a more cartoony and cut-down form. Now this is the remastered version of the game for PC. Of course, the original Xbox 360, PS3, and PC version of the game doesn't look quite as good.
That's my fault.
But essentially, you start off as a new recruit with the Ghostbusters in 1991, and your job is to learn how to shoot the proton pack, how to catch ghosts, how to deal with Peter Venkman, that kind of stuff.
And there! Oh, yes!
The graphics are really nothing short of phenomenal. I mean, it looks like you're in the movie. There's so many details in the game. I tried to play a game of Cubert, but that didn't work. The game starts out by releasing Slimer back into the wild, and you have to catch him and another ghost. Unfortunately, Slimer escapes and heads back to the Sedgwick Hotel, where you get to relive scenes from the first movie.
You've got him on the run! Come on, let's go!
And in a way, that gets a little annoying because you're just replaying the same scenes from the movie, but it's supposed to be 1991 instead. So it's a bit of a rehash, but still, it's a fun rehash.
Getting a good scan is sort of like taking a good snapshot.
Basically, in order to catch a ghost, you have to zap its strength first, and then you have to swing him around the room and beat him up to really weaken him, and then you can catch him in the trap. It's a little bit more convoluted than what they had to do in the movie, but you know, that's a game.
Ooh, that's smart!
Later on, we get to see the Marshmallow Man. I don't know if this is Gozer reincarnated again or something else, but you have to fight him and some of these smaller ghosts and marshmallow ghosts and stuff like that. This is definitely not your father's Ghostbusters game, that's for sure.
Multiple Class 5 FRB, inbound. Ray, prepare the muon trap.
The really cool thing about this game, though, is that all four of the original Ghostbusters lend their voices to the game. Bill Murray's delivery is a little, I don't know, it's like he's asleep or something most of the time. He's not quite as snappy as he is in the first two movies.
I had you when you were alive. You're worse.
It also features the voice of Annie Potts, William Atherton, and Max von Sydow. And for a lot of Ghostbusters fans, this is considered to be more or less the third movie, even though we did get Afterlife much, much later.
Game we played when I was in the seminary.
Ghosts and gargoyles. What dink game didn't you play?
Now, as I said, there is a version for the PSP and the Wii, which is a little bit more cartoony in style than the other version of the game, but it's still essentially the same thing.
No way, come back.
You're still a recruit, you still start out going to the Sedgwick Hotel trying to catch Slimer, you have to battle the same ghosts, it has the same voices, and overall it's a pretty fun game.
Huh? That guy looked lost. Ray, let's go check the fridge. Let them go after that.
I do like the Wii version of the game because you use the Wii controller as the proton pack and shoot at the screen. That was always pretty cool. And then we have the Nintendo DS version of the 2009 Ghostbusters game. This one is a little bit different in the sense that you're playing it from the top-down perspective instead of a first-person perspective. But overall, the storyline is basically the same. You have to go back to the Sedgwick and recapture Slimer and catch ghosts and that kind of stuff. I really like the part at the beginning where you get to drive the Ecto-1 around town. Even though New York seems pretty much abandoned. There's not a lot of cars on the road. I don't think that's a very accurate representation of New York City. Now, there's a lot of other Ghostbusters games that have come out since the 2009 game. Most of these games are of varying quality. I haven't had a chance to play them myself. There's just too many, which is why I wanted to concentrate on the 8-bit and 16-bit games and, you know, the 2009 game, which is, I think, special. So to wrap this up, I want to let you know what are my top 5 Ghostbusters games. Number 5 is going to be the Game Boy Ghostbusters 2 game. I really like the mechanic of pairing up with a friend and going around and catching ghosts. Number 4 is the real Ghostbusters arcade game, and that is the arcade version of the game. The other versions are not that great, but this one is a pretty fun top-down kind of shooter game. Number 3 is Ghostbusters for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive. I like the side-scrolling shooting action of that game, even though I suck at it and can't get very far. Number 2 is New Ghostbusters 2 for the NES. I really enjoy the mechanic of holding the ghost with the proton pack and then having your partner catch him with the trap. I just think that's so fun. And then lastly, my number 1 Ghostbusters game is the 2009 version, and in this case I was playing the remastered version on Steam. I just find this one to be really cool because you are playing basically as a Ghostbusters along with the team. You get to wander around the firehouse, you get to check out Ecto 1, and who knows what else is in my future while playing the 2009 Ghostbusters game.
Run! Get a scan on that.
Alright, so that's gonna do it for Ghostbusters games. Which one is your favorite Ghostbusters game? Please let me know down in the comments. Also, are you gonna check out Ghostbusters Frozen Empire? I don't know, this movie looks awesome. With all that said, I want to thank you for watching, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.